when we wanted to discuss this, he was certainly one, but it was more of, hey, let's lean it this way because both you and Kyle said this. The dark horse as a starter is Eric Gordon. So we included that of what does this one look like in terms of the camp battle? Does Kelly Oubre have the edge because of last season and his two-way ability? Or does it make sense where Eric Gordon comes in, shoots the lights out in practice, spaces the floor, or just sees how it works where Nick Nurse says, hey, Kelly, you've been a team player. You're still going to get your 25 minutes, but we're going to start the game off with Gordon.
So I'm gonna flip this over to Kyle because I have a question.
Okay.
Like I can't follow Devon's cue at all.
He's deferring Eric Gordon.
No. Percentage chance he starts opening night and an over-under of 30 games started by Eric Gordon on the season.
I'll go under on the 30, both because I don't think he'll start right away and because he's old and will probably get hurt.
Okay.
But I do think it's it's not a crazy thought there. And I've been on this island for a while. The more you talk to people around the team, the more it's like, I think Eric Gordon is going to play a sizable role on this team. And again, in conjunction with what we've said and believe about Kelly being more of that instant energy, instant offense type of guy off the bench at this stage of their careers, I don't think it'd be crazy. Now, as it relates to the camp battles and, sort of what we're getting into today, if there's anything I pay attention to, because the coaches always say, don't read into the lineups. The number one thing you should read into is the lineup combination.
If there's 4 starters and then one of these 2 out there, we're going to read into it.
It's like, hey, it's Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, Caleb Martin, and another guy. It's like, hey, don't look into that other guy being on the floor. It's like, no, that's clearly not true.
Maybe if it's like Jared McCain, all right, I won't read too much into it because that just defies logic and expectations. But if it's one of these 2 people, yes, I will read into it. And if you
spread it out where it's like, hey, Paul George is with a group of backups and it's just Joel and Maxey and they mix and match, like, okay, then you can look at me with a straight face and be like, don't look into this. But most of the time, they have their idea coming into training camp. This is our 5, or these are our 5-man groupings that we want to start building the chemistry between them, right? Like the reason that it matters in camp is because this is the most practice time in one stretch they will get between now and the season ending. And so if you believe practice time matters, and coaches certainly do, they would love to have much more of it than they're able to get during the season, you're going to put out the groups that you believe are going to play the most together to start the year. And so if we see Eric Gordon on the floor with Joel, Paul George, and Tyrese as soon as camp opens,
that tweet's going out right away.
That's a pretty big tell. That's like, hey, the whole show on Tuesday, our first set of Die Hard articles going into the next day in the Bahamas will be about Eric Gordon. And so really it all rests on how valuable does Nick Nurse think Eric Gordon's shooting is at that spot, right? Because that is if we're talking about McCain and his separation from, and like Lowry's a good shooter, Reggie Jackson's a pretty good shooter. McCain is in a different category, right? Eric Gordon, in terms of the volume and efficiency over their careers, is in a different category than Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre, mostly on the volume and also on how far he will shoot from, right? Like that ability, we keep bringing it up. It's no less true now than it was in early July or late June. Shooting 30-foot threes reliably and comfortably is a big difference maker when you're talking about, hey, we're trying to run pick and rolls with Tyrese and Joel in the middle of the floor. If you have Eric Gordon and you have to guard him that far out, that creates so much extra space for that action, or for Joel at the nail to be like, if you're going to try to double me, Eric Gordon is open and that closeout is like 12 to 15 feet away. That's a meaningful difference that can decide that lineup. And so I'm super interested to see what that first 5-man group is when we get to the Bahamas next week, because I do think Nurse values that spacing, but also as we have all these concerns about rebounding, athleticism, whatever, if you take a wing off the table, how much does that change kind of the complexion of the group? It's a really interesting question going into the season.
We all silly like the mayor.